Hi, my friends. Today I want to present you a new story. Enjoy watching it.
I was halfway through my morning coffee when my phone buzzed. It was Rosemary, and the moment I saw her name flash on the screen, I knew something was off. She never called this early, especially not with the wedding just weeks away. I picked up, bracing myself. "Hey Rosie, what's up?" Her voice was tight, barely holding back the frustration. "Dad's bringing Verity to the wedding, Agata." I tried talking to him, but he won't listen. He says she's family now. My heart sank. He's serious. After everything? Yes. He's serious, she snapped, and I could almost see her pacing, hands twisting in her hair. "I can't do this, Agata. If she shows up, I'm telling him not to come." The words hit me like a punch. Our father had always been difficult, but this was a new level of stubborn. Okay, calm down. I'll talk to him. Just focus on the wedding stuff. Let me handle this. There was a pause on the line, a shaky breath. "You better, Agata. This is my day and I won't have her ruining it." I hung up, the knot in my stomach tightening. I knew this conversation was going to be a disaster, but I had to try. Dad needed to understand that this was about Rosemary's happiness, not his whims. When I arrived at Dad's apartment later that evening, I found the door slightly ajar. I hesitated, then pushed it open, stepping inside. The first thing I noticed was the smell of stale wine. Bottles cluttered the coffee table, and there, sprawled on the couch, was Verity, sipping from a half-empty glass, a smug smile curling on her lips. Well, look who's here," she drawled, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. The dutiful daughter, come to set things straight. I ignored her and headed straight for Dad, who was slouched in an armchair, staring at the television. "Dad, we need to talk." He barely glanced at me, his eyes glazed over. "If this is about Verity, I'm done discussing it, Agata. She's coming, end of story." "Are you even listening to yourself?" I snapped, louder than I intended. "This is Rosemary's wedding, not some circus show where you bring your latest." Fling. Verity's laugh was sharp, cutting through the tension. "Oh, Agata, don't be so dramatic. I'm not going to ruin anything. I'm here to support Alex, just like you." I turned to her, feeling my hands clench into fists. "Support? You've done nothing but cause chaos since you showed up. I don't trust you, and neither does Rosemary. Why are you even here?" She stood up, swaying slightly, but her eyes were steady, cold. "Because he wants me here," she said, stepping closer, her tone low and threatening. "And maybe you should start accepting that instead of trying to control everything." My pulse quickened, and I could feel the heat rising to my cheeks. "You don't know a thing about our family. You're just..." "Enough." Dad's voice boomed, startling both of us. He stood, unsteady on his feet, but his expression was hard, unyielding. "Verity is coming, and that's final. You need to get over it, Agata." I stared at him, searching for some sign that he understood what he was doing, but there was nothing. Just the same stubbornness, amplified by alcohol and whatever spell Verity had cast over him. For a moment, I wanted to scream, to shake him out of this daze, but I knew it would be useless. "Fine," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "But if she causes any trouble, I'm holding you responsible, Dad. Remember that." I turned to leave, but just as I reached the door, Verity called out, her voice taunting. "See you at the wedding, Agata. I'll be sure to save you a dance." I didn't look back. I couldn't. As I stepped into the cool evening air, I felt a chill run down my spine, a sense of dread that clung to me. Something was wrong, and it wasn't just about the wedding. There was something in Verity's eyes, a flicker of triumph, like she was playing a game only she knew the rules to. And I had a sinking feeling that none of us were prepared for how it was going to end. The morning of the wedding, everything felt like it was teetering on the edge. Rosemary was pacing around the bridal suite, adjusting her veil for the 100th time, her hands trembling. I was trying to keep her calm, but my own nerves were shot. I couldn't shake the memory of my last conversation with Dad. His stubbornness, Verity's smirk, like she had already won. The ceremony was supposed to start at noon. By 11:30, I was at the venue, scanning the parking lot, praying, that Dad would arrive alone. But then I saw them. Dad, stumbling out of a cab, a little unsteady, and right behind him, Verity, wearing a bright red dress that screamed for attention, with a grin that made my stomach turn. As they approached, I stepped forward, blocking their path. "Dad, are you drunk?" He waved me off, swaying slightly. "Relax, Agata. I'm fine. We're here, aren't we?" Verity looped her arm around his, her eyes glinting. "Don't worry, sweetheart, I'll keep him in check." My mouth went dry, but there was no time to argue. The ceremony was minutes away, and Rosemary had already been through enough. "Just sit quietly and don't make a scene," I said, pointing them towards the seats near the back. As the ceremony began, I felt a small sense of relief. Rosemary looked stunning, walking down the aisle with a radiant smile. For a moment, it felt like everything might go smoothly, but then, halfway through the vows, there was a loud, systematic creaking of the chair echoing Verity's moans. My heart stopped. I turned around and saw Daddy sitting in the chair with Verity sitting on top of him and rocking. I was at a loss for words as I realized that they were indulging in intimate pleasure in public. I jumped up from my seat, ran over to them, and pulled Verity off of Daddy. "What the hell is wrong with both of you?" I hissed, trying to keep my voice down, but I could see the guests turning their heads and whispering. "Relax, Agatha," Verity said, stammering slightly. "We're just having a little fun." "This isn't a joke," I snapped, grabbing Dad's arm. "You're making an indecent scene." But before I could drag them out, Verity yanked herself free, and I saw her expression shift. "You think you can boss me around," she said, her voice suddenly sharp. "I'm tired of your self-righteous act." Without warning, she lunged at me, waving a bottle of half-drunk wine, and slapped me on the cheek. The shock of it left me stunned for a second, but then I felt a hot sting of pain, and the next thing I knew, Rosemary was screaming, rushing over in her wedding dress, her face pale. "What are you doing?" she shouted, tears streaming down her face. "This is my wedding." The whole scene had descended into chaos. Guests were on their feet, some trying to pull Dad away, others filming on their phones. Verity stumbled back, laughing like she had lost her mind, and Dad was muttering incoherently, trying to apologize, but his words were lost in the noise. I reached for Rosemary, my cheek burning. "I'm so sorry," I said, my voice cracking. "I didn't think they'd—" "Just get them out of here," she screamed, and there was a raw, desperate edge to her voice that I had never heard before. "I don't care how, just get them out." With the help of a couple of ushers, I managed to drag Dad and Verity towards the exit, her protests growing louder and more frantic. As we shoved them out the door, she turned to me one last time, her eyes wild. "You're going to regret this, Agata. You have no idea who you're dealing with." The words sent a chill through me, but there was no time to process it. I slammed the door shut, shutting out her threats, and turned back to the chaos I had left behind, praying that somehow we could salvage what was left of Rosemary's day. The morning after the wedding felt like waking up from a bad dream. My cheek was still sore, a reminder of Verity's sudden attack, but it was nothing compared to the ache in my chest. Rosemary hadn't spoken to me after the ceremony. She had left with Stephen, the reception cancelled, leaving me to clean up the mess. I was sipping a bitter cup of coffee when my phone buzzed. A new message from an unknown number. It was a blurry photo, taken at the wedding. Verity, grinning wildly, with Dad beside her, half collapsed against a wall. My stomach churned. Underneath the photo was a single line, "We're not done yet." I felt a surge of panic. What did she mean? I immediately called Dad, but it went straight to voicemail. I left a tense message, trying to keep my voice calm. "Dad, it's Agata. We need to talk. Call me as soon as you get this." For the rest of the day, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. I tried distracting myself with work, but the same questions kept replaying in my mind. Why had Verity come to the wedding, and what was she planning now? That evening, just as I was about to give up and go to bed, there was a knock at my door. I opened it to find Stephen standing there, looking grim. "I'm sorry to drop by unannounced," he said, "but we need to talk." He handed me a stack of printed papers, court records, newspaper clippings. My hands trembled as I skimmed through them, my eyes widening. Fraud charges, theft, assault. It was a file on Verity, and it was longer than I could have imagined. "I found these after the wedding," Stephen said quietly. "I've been doing some digging. Verity's been arrested multiple times. She's a con artist, Agata, and she's got a history of targeting older men." The words hit me like a punch. "You think she's using Dad?" Stephen nodded, his expression serious. I think she's more dangerous than we realized, and I don't think your dad knows who she really is." My mind raced, piecing together everything that had happened. The drunken appearance, the threats, the way she had latched onto Dad. It all made sense, and it terrified me. "We have to tell him," I said. "We have to get him away from her." But as I reached for my phone again, it rang. Dad's name flashed on the screen, and I felt a flicker of relief. "Dad, thank God." "Agata," his voice was low, almost slurred. "You need to stop. Leave Verity alone." I froze. "What are you talking about? She's helping me. I know what you're trying to do, but you're wrong about her." It felt like the ground was slipping from under my feet. "Dad, she's a criminal." "I have proof. Stephen has proof." "No," he interrupted, his tone sharper. "I don't care what you found. She loves me, and I'm not going to let you ruin this." The line went dead, leaving me standing there speechless. Stephen's eyes were filled with concern. "What did he say?" "He doesn't believe me," I whispered, my voice hollow. "He's on her side." As the realization sank in, I clenched the papers in my hand, my heart pounding. Verity had her hooks in him deeper than I thought, and now she knew I was onto her. I didn't know what she had planned, but her message was clear. This wasn't over. And I was about to find out just how far she was willing to go. Weeks passed, but the tension didn't fade. Verity's message still haunted me, and Dad's refusal to see the truth felt like a betrayal I couldn't shake. I threw myself into work, trying to drown out the chaos, but the nagging worry followed me everywhere. I hadn't heard from Dad since that last call, and Rosemary was barely speaking to me. One Friday afternoon, as I was packing up to leave the office, I got a text from Rosemary. "Meet me at the cafe, 6 p.m. We need to talk." My heart skipped a beat. Was this the conversation where she'd finally decide to cut me out of her life completely? I wasn't sure I could bear it. I arrived early, nervously stirring my coffee, until she walked in, looking more tired than I'd ever seen her. She sat down across from me without a word, and for a moment, we just stared at each other, the silence thick with everything left unsaid. "I know you're trying to protect Dad," she said finally, her voice quiet but firm. "But this is tearing the family apart. I don't know if I can forgive you for what happened at the wedding." I swallowed hard. "I didn't mean for any of that to happen, Rose. But Verity, she's dangerous. She's using him." Rosemary shook her head, a hint of frustration in her eyes. "I've heard enough about Verity. What about you, Agata? What's going on with you?" The question caught me off guard. I had been so focused on uncovering Verity's schemes that I hadn't stopped to think about how it was affecting me. "I don't know," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "I feel like I'm losing everything, and I don't know how to stop it." For the first time in weeks, Rosemary's expression softened. "I miss you, Agata. I miss my sister. But I can't keep watching you destroy yourself over this." Her words hit me harder than I expected. I realized I'd been so wrapped up in the battle with Verity that I'd neglected everything else. My career, my friends, even Rosemary. I didn't want to lose her, but I was terrified of letting Verity win. Later that evening, I sat alone in my apartment, the city lights flickering outside my window. My phone buzzed with an email notification, and I glanced at it half-heartedly, until I saw the sender. From Dad, the subject line read, "Help." My hands shook as I opened the email. It was short, just a few lines, but it was enough to make my blood run cold. "I don't know what to do anymore. She's not who I thought she was. Please, I need you. Call me." I dialed his number immediately, my heart pounding as I listened to it ring. When he answered, his voice was barely a whisper. "Agata, I'm so sorry." Relief washed over me, but it was quickly replaced by a new kind of fear. "Dad, where are you?" I'm at home, but she's not here right now," he said, his voice cracking. "I didn't believe you, and now I think I've made a terrible mistake." "Listen to me," I said, my tone urgent. "I'm coming over. Don't do anything. Just stay there, okay?" I grabbed my keys and headed out the door, bracing myself for whatever was waiting on the other side. As I drove to my dad's house, I replayed the sequence of events in my head. After the disastrous wedding day, I couldn't shake the feeling that Verity was hiding more than just a toxic personality. I needed to dig deeper. A few days after the wedding, I met with a private investigator, David, whom Rosemary and Stephen had recommended. It was a gamble, but I was desperate for answers. I need to know everything about her, I told David. I need to understand how she got her hooks into my father. David was efficient, and within a week, he had uncovered enough to turn my suspicions into certainty. Verity wasn't just a manipulative girlfriend, she was a professional con artist. The most shocking revelation was that she had been forging my father's signature on various legal documents, taking out loans in his name. The debts were piling up, and my father had no idea. It was a deliberate, methodical theft, and if she wasn't stopped, she would drain everything he had. Armed with this information, I knew I had to act quickly. When I went to my father, I immediately presented him with the evidence, and for the first time, he looked at me with complete, heartbreaking vulnerability. "How did I let this happen?" he asked, his voice cracking. I wanted to comfort him, but there was no time for that now. We had to stop her. The plan was simple. We contacted the authorities and arranged a setup. My father would invite Verity over, pretending to be completely oblivious, and she would attempt to get him to sign another set of fraudulent papers. David and I worked behind the scenes to ensure everything was in place. We needed her caught red-handed. It happened on a Thursday afternoon, in the living room of my father's house. I watched from the adjacent room, heart pounding, as Verity sat next to my dad, cooing softly, easing him into signing a stack of documents she claimed were investment papers. Just as she slid the pen into his hand, a team of officers burst through the door. "Verity Langford, you are under arrest for fraud, forgery, and identity theft," one of them announced, while another moved swiftly to cuff her hands behind her back. For a moment, Verity just sat there, stunned, her smile frozen on her lips. But when she turned and saw me standing in the doorway, her eyes blazed with fury. "You," she spat, struggling against the officers. "You set me up." I stepped forward, calm and resolute. "No, Verity," I said, my voice steady. "You set yourself up the moment you decided to take advantage of my father. I just made sure you were caught." The day of Verity's trial arrived, and I found myself standing outside the courthouse, my heart thudding like a drum. I hadn't slept much, replaying my victim impact statement over and over in my head, trying to make sure every word was right. This was my chance to finally speak my truth, to say everything I'd held back for so long. But the anxiety gnawed at me. What if no one believed me? What if Verity managed to manipulate her way out of this, like she had so many times before? Inside, the courtroom was buzzing. I spotted Dad sitting alone near the back, looking frail and smaller than I remembered. Our eyes met briefly, and he nodded, a silent promise that he was finally on my side. I took a deep breath and stepped forward, feeling the weight of all the chaos Verity had caused pressing down on me. The trial felt like it lasted forever, with Verity's lawyer throwing out every excuse and deflection they could muster. But the real moment of reckoning came when I was called to the stand. I had rehearsed my statement 100 times, but as I faced Verity, seated so calmly across the room, the words almost caught in my throat. "I've spent months trying to understand why someone would do the things you did." I began, my voice steady, though my hands were trembling. "But I realize now that it doesn't matter why. What matters is that you hurt people, and you manipulated the people I love. You turned my family against each other, and you didn't care about the damage." Verity's eyes flickered, but she said nothing, her expression icy. For a moment, I thought she would interrupt, but she stayed silent, as if daring me to continue. "I'm done letting you control my life," I said, my voice growing stronger. "And I'm done letting fear keep me silent." The judge thanked me and dismissed me from the stand, and as I walked back to my seat, I felt a sense of lightness I hadn't experienced in months. I glanced at Dad, and he mouthed a quiet, "Thank you." The judge's ruling came quickly after that, with Verity found guilty on multiple counts of fraud and coercion. As she was led out of the courtroom, she shot me a final, venomous look, but for once it didn't faze me. I knew she had lost, and that I was finally free. Outside, the sunlight felt warmer than it had in months. I stood with Rosemary and Stephen, who had been waiting outside, and for the first time, I saw Rosemary smile. A real, genuine smile, not the tight-lipped one she'd been wearing all these months.